Hey everyone, it's Forrest, and we have finally made it. I am so excited to get this inaugural season of our new video series, 1000 Seconds, underway, and I am equally thankful that each of you has chosen to tune in and spend some time with us. At the same time, I do want to acknowledge that our timeline is a little delayed from our initial plan, and we come today with heavy hearts as we continue to think about so many friends and family members and colleagues all across the southeastern United States who are continuing to deal with the very real, tragic, and almost unimaginable impacts of two recent hurricanes, Helene and Milton. We will continue to lift you up, and we will continue to support all of you however we can on your journey to recovery and healing. With that said, let's get episode 1 underway with our very special guest, Dr. Heather Brandt. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 1000 Seconds. I am so excited to be here and so excited that you're here. Season 1, episode 1. We have had a great time starting the planning and recording for this first season. I am so excited for you to meet all of our guests. 10 guests, 10 episodes over the next handful of weeks. But I have to admit that I'm most excited for today's guest because we have a very special guest with us for episode 1. Dr. Heather Brandt, how are you? Welcome to 1000 Seconds.
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We are thrilled that we could finally find some time on the calendars where our calendars align, where we could make this happen. Let me not get too far down the road here without doing some biographical stuff. I have a chance to introduce you a lot, but never sort of in the formal setting, reading your bio. So excuse me for reading, but I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. Your current title, or multiple titles as it were: Director of the HPV Cancer Prevention Program at St Jude Children's Research Hospital. You are also the co-associate director of the St Jude Comprehensive Cancer Center, a member of the St Jude faculty. Before that, and I suppose technically still, a member of the faculty at the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina. You are also an associate dean in the graduate school at the University of South Carolina, multiple advanced degrees from the University of South Carolina. Prior to that, your undergrad at the University of Iowa. A little bit about your history that some people may not know. You were a first-generation college student when you attended the University of Iowa. So many awards, multiple recognitions, too many to even list. Most recently, 2023 Friend of Children Award from the Tennessee Academy of Pediatrics. On and on and on. Just wonderful accomplishments and a wonderful career. How'd I do? What'd I miss?
That was great.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, you are guest number 1. So in addition to sort of introductions, we're going to do a little mapping here of what episodes are going to look like along the way. And my plan, as I think you know, is to start every episode with a pretty simple question. Do you remember how we first met? So, Dr. Brandt, in that long career journey I just outlined, do you remember how we first met?
I do. I suppose it was about 20 years ago when I was a faculty member in health promotion, education, and behavior in the Arnold School.
Mm.
And then Dean Dr. Donna Richter had charged me with responding to a grant opportunity for community campus partnerships for health. And in order to do this, we needed to engage with thought leaders in the public health and human service sector in South Carolina. And she said, "Oh, you should go invite Forrest Alton. He is at that time, executive director of the South Carolina Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy." And so that is how I believe our paths first formally crossed, was as a result of that initiative focused on engaging with community thought leaders and subject matter experts in public health.
That sounds right. I'll buy that. And so that's 20-ish years ago. My goodness. Give or take. Shout out to Dr. Richter and all of our friends at the Arnold School of Public Health. That place will always hold a special place in our heart for a number of reasons, not the least of which is it is what resulted in our first meeting and many meetings thereafter. I suppose before we go too much further, I've alluded to this maybe a few times, but we should just say formally that in addition to being friends now for 20 years and colleagues for 20 years and business partners for 8 years, Heather and I have also been married for 12 years since 2012. So lots of connectivity here and lots of reasons to be excited about this conversation. So thanks again for being here. Um, Again,
So
just in turn,
earlier when you said, how did I do with my bio? I almost said, well, I'm also like your partner. We should
that's fair.
probably, we should
That's
probably
fair.
say that
Yeah, no, that's fair. I could have done it
too.
then. I chose to do it now. That's fine. Also,
It worked out.
a wonderful dog mom.
Oh.
We Heather and I are both recording actually from different parts of the house today, and we had to send our wonderful pup Elvis to his daycare. Otherwise, he would have been sure to make an appearance, if not
Mhm.
visually, at least through sound, almost assuredly. So you'll have to come back to a future episode to meet Elvis. So again, just a little bit of show mapping here since we're on episode one. In addition to the hi, how are you? How did we meet? Part of the discussion, we are going to actually start the timer. I'm looking over here, getting ready to hit start. The name of the show, 1000 Seconds. We're going to do our best to hold to that. By the way, for any of you watching who haven't seen our most recent promo clip with what I'm referring to as the children of 1000 Feathers, some of our nieces and nephews, children of our colleagues at 1000 Feathers, all trying to guess how long it is, how long 1000 seconds is. It's a fun clip. Go to LinkedIn, check it out. It'll bring a smile to your face. But for today, I'll go ahead and do the homework and the math for you. It's a little over 16 minutes. So that's how long we have to get into it with every guest, including Dr. Brandt today, to dive into some topics around leadership and having a vision and charting a path forward and being a good team member and a good partner and a good collaborator. We've got lots to talk about on all of our episodes, including today. So let's get to it.
Welcome to 1000 Seconds, a video series presented by 1000 Feathers and hosted by the firm's co-founder and president, Forrest. In this first season, Forrest sits down with changemakers, leaders, and visionaries who are doing transformative work at the local, state, and national level. This series will give you a unique view and front row seat to bold and courageous conversations with people that Forrest has learned from and worked with along the way. So set your timers, 1000 seconds starts now.
Heather, let's go back to 2015-ish, right? Probably about that time when you and I started conversations about founding this company. By the way, for those who don't know, the feather part of 1000 Feathers is actually the F from Forrest and everything else from Heather. So you mash those things together, you get feather. That's half of the story of our name. I'll give you the other half maybe in a future episode. But just so you know, Heather and I did start this company together in 2016, but we probably started those conversations in 2015-ish, thinking about what was next. Go back to that time. What do you remember about the conversations when we were starting this company?
Well, I think at that time for each of us individually, it was a time where we were each at inflection points.
Hmm.
You in your career at what was then known as the South Carolina Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy, and me in my role at the University of South Carolina. And at least from my perspective at that time, as we were exploring what was next for us on our path, I really started feeling like I wanted to experience administration in a university
Hmm.
setting. I wasn't sure what that looked like, but I knew that I was ready for some type of decision making responsibility within the Arnold School or within the university. And so I was exploring those different potential options at that time. You were also thinking about what was next. And I think what we both sort of came to realize through those conversations is that in our work together through what would become 1000 Feathers, we knew there was so much more that was needed and could be done working with communities, transforming communities, working with organizations designed to build and serve communities. And I think we really wanted to better dig into how to do that well. and
Mhm.
apply a
Mhm.
methodological process that had the rigor of science and evidence, but also had the pragmatism that came with many years of our experience of listening and learning on the streets, so to speak, from people who were gatekeepers and those with lived experience who could really make things real for us.
I love that. Just sitting and having a chance to listen to someone else reflect on those early days. And it's a good reminder because everything you said, even 8 years later, still defines sort of the heart and soul of this firm and everything we are at 1000 Feathers. We've grown, we've changed, we've evolved, but those core beliefs, those core values, that sort of core reason for being has stayed very consistent, and for a lot of the reasons you just described. I think probably most people who are listening know, but just to be clear, though, 1000 Feathers is my day job, but it's not your day job. I gave all of the different titles that you have at St. Jude. Let's talk just a little bit about the work you are doing currently at St. Jude, and maybe just a little bit about how you got there and how, frankly, we got here to Memphis.
Well, I don't want it to seem like I'm at frequent inflection points. I'm not, but I really loved I loved the University of South Carolina. I really loved the work I was doing in public health, research, training students in and out of the classroom. I really loved the work in the graduate school, really focused on professional development and scholarly initiatives for the university's more than 7,000 graduate students at the time. I really enjoyed that work, but I was approached by St. Jude about an opportunity. And if there's one thing that still keeps me up at night about the work that I've done over the last tenure of my professional career, it's that kids aren't getting vaccinated against HPV to prevent cancers in the future.
Yeah.
And so when St. Jude approached me, I thought, St. Jude doesn't do this work. Why are they interested in talking to me? It became very intriguing to me. And so they pursued and recruited me. And it really seemed like an opportunity that we together should consider. And I should think about how I could make it my own. So I'm going to focus this mostly on the HPV cancer
Yeah.
prevention program. This is an issue, HPV vaccination, which may seem really small to some people. And I understand that. And I don't want to get into the nuances of that. But the idea that we have a thing that works so well that's given to children to prevent cancers in adulthood. 6 types of cancer are prevented by this vaccine. It works so well that other countries are eliminating those types of
Wow.
cancers because
Yeah.
of vaccination. So I had really built a track record in interventions and implementation science and HPV vaccination. And so St. Jude said, would you come lead this program? And I thought this might be a time to really test whether or not the skills I had amassed during my career at the University of South Carolina transferred into a new setting, a new institutional culture, and this new opportunity to build something from scratch. And I had recently done that in my role as associate dean because there were no organized initiatives at that time centered from the graduate school. So I had some taste of what that looked like. It's that health promotion program planning skills that transfer into other areas.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to take on this challenge. And when it all comes down to it, this work that I do, that we do, it's about relationships. And I had established the relationships I needed to really position me for successfully building this new program. But I knew I couldn't do it alone. I was going to need insiders within St. Jude here in Memphis and more broadly to really help understand the full scale of the opportunity.
It's really interesting, and all of that is so important, and there's lots of things that we could follow up on, and I'm going to do my best in the 10 minutes or so we have left to pull on some of those threads and ask some follow-up questions. But I want to go back to something that you said a few minutes ago. You said that I'm not at frequent inflection points. And it's okay. That's a defensible position. But it's also interesting because I wrote this down earlier. There are plenty of adjectives that I would use or others would use to describe you and describe your work. I'm not sure that risk taker, though, would be at the top of my list. Innovator, maybe, but risk taker, I'm not so sure. But think of that journey that we, frankly, collectively have been on over the last 6, 7, 8 years. We launched a company after I stepped down from a very stable position and leadership position in a statewide nonprofit. You took a big risk becoming the first ever associate dean for professional development in the graduate school. Another big risk when we sort of dropped all of it and made this move to Memphis, right? So that you could take a position that hadn't previously existed to build an institute that hadn't previously existed. For those listening, right, who are maybe on the fence of like, when do I make that big move? When do I take that big chance or maybe even that risk? From somebody who's traditionally risk averse, what would you say?
Well, that all sounds really risky, I have to admit. To hear you say it quite like that, I'm not sure that, um, yeah, that sounds very risky. But look, I really ascribe to this notion that the Roman philosopher Seneca put out there: luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And so
Mhm.
we make our own luck, we process risk differently. And I like to think I was prepared for the opportunity, that I was confident in my own belief in my abilities because I had worked for so many years to gain knowledge, build skills, nurture relationships, and grow personally and professionally. And so my greatest transformations have occurred when I've decided to take these very calculated risks, as some might characterize them, I think of as opportunities. And so I learned my skills transfer. I was really able to use what I knew and felt comfortable doing, and it worked. And so I was able to assess while balancing process and action, really implement and evaluate, improve when needed. And so this really gave me the confidence I needed in my knowledge, skills, and my own growth. So I feel like I was prepared
Mm.
for these opportunities in a way that didn't at the time make them seem risky to me.
That you did a wonderful job bringing sort of research and data and preparation and planning into this space of risk taking. It's a very researcher answer. I'm proud of you for balancing those two worlds there as we're talking about this. But I do think it's important, right? This being prepared, as it were, for when opportunity knocks, whatever euphemism you want to introduce and include here. Yeah, it matters and it's important. Let's
Mhm.
go back to the actual work you're doing here for just a second, because one of the other things that I've had a front row seat to, quite literally, and have been interested in is your ability to take a number of concepts that are related to your work. You've mentioned things like relationships and partnerships and working with folks that have lived experience and being community facing and being in and working with community. For all of the wonderful work that St. Jude has done throughout its history, some of those sort of things, the community facing part of this work was new to that entire institution, quite frankly. I'm just curious what it was like for you to sort of introduce some new concepts, some new mechanisms, some new approaches into an organization that has such a strong and deeply rooted culture that already existed before you arrived.
Well, I think at least at first, I was very much a unicorn at St. Jude. I think I'm maybe less of a unicorn now because, as you said, St. Jude has not focused on community facing work. They have not traditionally focused on prevention in quite this same way. But make no mistake, St. Jude has a culture of innovation and knowledge
Mm,
generation
mm,
and discovery, so much so that since its founding in the early 1960s, St. Jude has led the transformation of childhood cancer survivorship
For
and
sure.
preventing
Sure.
catastrophic diseases and curing catastrophic diseases in children, so that we realize Danny Thomas's dream that no child should die in the dawn of life. So, in that spirit of innovation and capitalizing on using St. Jude as a trusted, known, and respected entity, they felt very strongly that St. Jude's involvement in HPV vaccination would build confidence. And so this was a space where they felt like there was opportunity
Yeah.
for St. Jude to have impact, because when it all comes down to it, that's what matters most at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, is that more lives are saved and people lead longer, happier lives. And this is, of course, focused with children and catastrophic diseases. And about 3/4 of what St. Jude does is cancer. So this also fit really nicely in their profile, as it related to cancer, just in the prevention side of things. But it's still kids, it's still families, and it's making sure that they take advantage of this prevention tool that we have.
As you were talking, I was thinking about some of the, internal lexicon at 1,000 Feathers, right? And one of the things we are often saying to organizations is we're trying to help them find their optimal point of contribution, right?
Mhm.
Where can they make the greatest impact? And as you were just talking, it dawns on me that, St. Jude is willing to be innovative, push the envelope, make big investments, whatever they need to do when there is an opportunity for impact, right? So
Mhm.
this decision making isn't random. It isn't chasing a shiny object. It is, will this thing allow us to have a better impact, to have a greater impact on our mission, right?
Mhm.
That's the lens through which we're reviewing this sort of decision making.
Exactly. And I think one of the things that St. Jude does in that discovery process, knowledge generation, innovation to help lead to impact, is there's a high level of methodological rigor, review of data and evidence, like what do we know today
Yeah.
and where do we want to go? And that's just right in my wheelhouse. It's in your wheelhouse, and it's fundamental to 1,000 Feathers, is that we want to understand where we are today, but not at the expense of acting where there are those opportunities informed by the evidence we have available. We don't want to stall. We want to act on what we know works, while also continuing to sort of consider the context and conditions.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sort of tying a bow on that random thought that I was having, trying to connect the work of St. Jude and 1,000 Feathers, but I could see it, and you really were able to articulate it there. Listen, we've got about a minute-ish left. I'm not sure that I have the stomach or you have the stomach for some big change again here. So I'm not trying to break any news, but in our last minute or so, as you look out in the future, like what's the next big challenge? What's the next thing you're working on trying to solve sort of when it comes to all these things we've been talking about?
Well, I think there certainly are a lot of very specific opportunities related to HPV vaccination and HPV cancer prevention that I could choose to focus
Sure.
on.
Yeah.
I think I want to focus more on methodological approach that I've really been doing for a very long time. And I think more people are starting to learn about, understand, and want to use, and that's implementation science. So that is the process by we take something that's been shown to work and get it to more people so it can benefit more people and really ultimately have impact. And I think this is a really opportune area for expansion,
Mm,
because
mm,
once we learn something works, we don't just want to have a journal article, give a
right.
presentation, write a
Right.
book, things that are just very people should be proud of, but not things that are really going to lead change and have an impact. And so the process by which putting that in place, I think, is one that we're continuing to uncover the tremendous opportunities with developing the theories, models, and frameworks. Many exist, but now we're realizing they don't integrate equity first. They maybe aren't as relevant to certain populations. So, how can we continue to develop that science and make it accessible for the
Mm,
average
mm.
person who's serving community to put that to work for them, so that more people can ultimately benefit?
I love it. I just wrote down my next 5 questions, but sadly the timer did just go off. This is going to be the biggest challenge of this show. I can already see it coming moving forward is, can we do this in 1000 seconds? We are going to try. And all joking aside about our discussion of risk earlier, I appreciate you taking a chance and being our first guest. There's a little bit of experimentation even happening in real time here as we're recording, but we'll continue to get better as the episodes go. This conversation was great. I just need to do a better job managing the timer moving forward. But this is episode 1. A big thank you to Dr. Heather Brandt for joining us. Thanks for all of you for being here. We'll see you soon on episode 2 of 1000 Seconds.